And good evening, everybody. Once again, welcome to Going Nuclear, full-blown coverage of the land presented by Buzz Sports CLE. I am Ethan Greenberg, and I am here with my co-host Madison Delaney. You can follow us on Twitter at our screen names, which are on the video. I'm at egreen4325. Madison is at madtravels24. Megan Donovan still under the weather. She is not with us tonight, so hopefully she is on the mend and will be back soon. But once again, we've had more excitement in Cleveland sports. Lots to talk about here. How is your week going so far? You pumped up for opening day and to watch the Guardians get underway and try and defend their American League Central Division crown?
I don't know about watching because that West Coast trip is a little tough, a little late for me. I have an early Orange Theory class to get to, but I will check the score in the morning before I get over there.
No, I completely agree that the whole thing about traveling from west to east is just it's a brutal schedule. I'm sure even for the guys on the team or any athlete when you have to travel and all that stuff. I guess the only positive is this, and maybe not the only positive, but one of the positives is they were in Arizona. So it's not like they had to go from the East Coast to the West Coast. They were in the mountain, probably in the mountain time zone, and only had to go over to the Pacific time zone, not as dramatic of a shift. And they did get a couple days ahead of time out there. So we shall see how that goes and how that affects them. We've got the Guardians opening up the season tonight, 10:10 Eastern in Seattle with Bieber on the mound. We'll get to that momentarily. The Cavs clinched the playoff spot and are fighting, hoping to lock up no worse than the 4 seed and without any further injuries or anything to diminish their possible chances in the playoffs. So we've got that to talk about. The Browns, the league meetings, there was lots of interesting things going on there. Of course, is the ongoing Lamar Jackson saga because that is just ridiculous. You've got all the hubbub about OBJ hugging Stefanski and what that means or doesn't mean. It's a lot of craziness here, but it's a good time to be a Cleveland sports fan. There is definitely some excitement in the air. I know that neither of us are even in Ohio, but we can feel the excitement. I do on my Twitter feed. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I was wearing a Cavs sweatshirt to trivia last night, and someone was like, "Are you from Cleveland?" I was like, "I hate to tell you that I'm technically not, but by proxy, sort of." So yeah, I think people are excited. I was like, "You got to catch a Cavs game next time you're up there in town. Like, go to a playoff game, hit up the Guardians, do something fun." I think they had a home office up there that they traveled to. But yeah, I mean, you can't wear Cleveland stuff in North Carolina without somebody pointing you out. So we've got plenty of fans down here and the whole Browns bar, and all that going on. So we're ready to go, I think, for all of the teams.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I kind of feel the same way down here in Virginia. Obviously, my office is not so much. I see the same people in the building and the same people in my my group. So nothing that I wear catches their attention per se. But definitely when I'm out and about, and heck, even my wife, she'll be wearing something because, of course, she's been indoctrinated and pulled into this. She even got a nice brown sweatshirt, kind of a goof that I found online. I'm married into this, with the Browns helmet and stuff. So,
Yeah.
hey, that's fair. That is fair. So, once again, folks, as always, presented by Buzz Sports CLE. And you can follow the show on Twitter at Going Nuclear CLE. You can go to our YouTube channel. Please do. Please subscribe. We'd love to have you join in. Send us your comments during the show, questions, etc. Always makes things a little more interesting and entertaining here. Otherwise, we're just talking to ourselves, which is not a bad thing because I don't mind conversing. And I have a big mouth, so it works out quite nicely. It does work out quite nicely. So, Madison, I was telling you, and we've seen all the news stories about this. Everybody talking about how significant it is for the Cavs to be making the playoffs. It wasn't that long ago that they were in the playoffs, of course, with LeBron. But the last time, and again, I'm sure you've read the stories, the last time this team was in the playoffs before LeBron James, 1997-98 season. The Cavs that season, do you know who their coach was?
I
Have you
don't.
studied it?
I have not studied it. No.
It was the czar of the telestrator, Mike Fratello. Okay. So you had Mike Fratello. They went 47-35. So they've already eclipsed that mark this season with 48 wins. It'd be nice to get at least a couple more here in the next out of the next five. I'd say at least let's get two more because I for one had counted on them being a 50-win team. I'll be a little disappointed if they can't win at least a couple of these next five games with Orlando a couple times on the schedule and Charlotte, etc.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
in that year, they just for history's sake here, do a little history lesson. They finished fifth in the Central Division. That must have been a pretty strong division that season, because I didn't look at the playoff breakdown, but I'm pretty certain in that season, 97-98, that seems to me to be another one of Jordan's championship seasons. And the Pacers, they played the Pacers in the playoffs. The Pacers took them out. At that point, it was a best-of-5 series in the first round, and they lost to the Pacers 3-1 in that round. The starting lineup. Now, here's going to be the key question for you as you're a basketball Cleveland aficionado. All right, I'm gonna name the starting lineup, and I will bet that you know at least two of the five. At least two of the five you will know. All right. First one, Wesley Person. Were you familiar with Wesley Person?
I don't think so. No.
Were you familiar with Chuck Person?
I don't think so. No.
No. Okay, this is good. Good history lesson. All right. Sean Kemp.
Yes.
Familiar with Sean Kemp?
I am. Yeah.
Okay, the Rain Man. Came from Seattle. Brevin Knight. Point guard. Nope. Brevin Knight from Stanford. This guy, I had kind of forgotten about him. Cedric Henderson. I barely know who he is, so I'm not even going to challenge you on that one. But the man in the middle, the one, the only, is the Drunas Ilgauskas.
Yeah, of course we know Big Z.
We know Big Z, of course. Okay, so you got 40% of the starting lineup there. That's pretty solid. That is pretty solid for someone who did not live in Cleveland at that time, who was very young at the time.
Yeah.
But this is an interesting stat because this goes all the way back to the beginning of the season. And when we were talking about the Cavs defense or the lack thereof, or what it appeared to be the lack thereof, I mean, and ultimately, even though they're giving up what we might perceive, or at least I might perceive as a lot of points, it's actually some of the best in the NBA. The Cavs averaged, okay, they scored 92.5 points per game. Okay, yeah, exactly. Do you know how many they get? Do you know how many points per game their opponents averaged?
Oh gosh, it's what, like 94?
Yeah, 89.8.
Oh wow, that's not a bad plus. That's not a bad margin.
No, it is not a bad plus minus margin there. And can you imagine how different the game was then versus now? Is it a lack of defense? Is it that there's so many more people jacking up 3-pointers? Are they just that much better, or is the defense that much worse?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combo of things, I feel. I mean, one, you've got guys chucking up 3-pointers at a rate unlike anything we've seen. I mean, even just over the last 10 years, it's exponentially. And then you also have, of course, the league saying, whoa, offense sells tickets. You guys can't really play defense. Let's put some rules in that will restrict you really even more than in the past. I mean, obviously, everybody loves to play the defense. They were so tough and they were physical, and you can't do that now. And I mean, you can. It's just you can do it in the playoffs. You can't do it in the regular season anymore because that's typically how it goes. Or you're us, and you breathe on somebody in the regular season and get a foul.
Yeah, that's just, I was going to bring that up, and I'm still a sore spot from the other night. The fact that DeJounte Murray jumps into Evan Mobley, and somehow Mobley is getting called for the foul for interfering with his ability to land. That was the biggest bunch of bull bleep I've ever seen. I
Yeah.
cannot believe that. And I don't think JB made some strong comments after the game. He did not, as far as I know, I haven't seen anything indicating he was fined for said comments. But it's absolutely crazy to me that they even went so far as to have to go to a replay on that. First of all, it was a terrible call in the first place. And then you double down on it. Like, what is wrong with people? What
Yeah.
is
I
wrong?
mean, I did see the thing about it. I think it happened at 2:15, and people are like, "Oh, they knew it wouldn't be on the last 2-minute report, so they could really like call whatever they want." I mean, I do feel. I mean, I'm not like a big conspiracy, but I do feel like the league is like, "Oh God, the Cavs could be in the 3 seed. We don't really want that." Like,
Yeah.
let's try to make it tough.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite possible. I mean, they don't make it easy on themselves. And it was a little bit of a difficult situation the other night. Isaac Okoro is out and Jared Allen out. And
Yeah.
not having Allen, I'm sure, made a difference. They did a pretty good job on Trae Young, kept him in check.
Mhm.
And, ultimately down the stretch, they fell behind, but they gave themselves an opportunity. So, I mean, it is what it is. It's a tough one to swallow when you look at that call. I know JB was talking about a play where someone stepped out of bounds and then they hit a three. I wasn't as familiarized with that as I was the other play, just because, of course, it wasn't on locally. So I was listening to our announcers on the radio, which is fine, which is Mr. Alcorn and Mr. Chones do a pretty good job there. So I got to hear all those things. But going back to our history lesson here, let's see. I even looked at the Billboard Top 10 for the week of April 23rd, 1998. And I chose April 23rd because that's when the playoffs will start or about there. And that's the last time the Cavs were in the playoffs pre-LeBron. Some of these songs, number one, Too Close by Next song, because I
Yeah, I don't know if I know
maybe
that.
if I heard it I would know it. The
Probably.
next one I definitely know, All My Life by Casey and JoJo.
Nope.
No. Okay.
I
The
don't think I
next
have that
one,
one.
yeah, the next one is Let's Ride by Montel Jordan featuring Master P and Silk the Shocker.
I want to say I know that one, but not like I couldn't say it for you right now, but it sounds familiar.
Right. The only Montel Jordan I know is the This Is How We Do It song. I don't know much else Montel Jordan. The next one I know the artist, but not the song. Frozen by Madonna. I have no idea what that song is. I mean, it might just be my old feeble brain, not working, but yeah, it's tough. Number five on the list. You're Still the One by Shania Twain. That one I know.
Yes. I got
That one I
tickets for her later this year. I'm excited.
Really
Yes.
fantastic.
Pumped.
Well, there we go. She was good. That was a big music. A lot of weddings playing that song. A lot of proms, etc. I mean, I guess that was around the time I was a freshman in college, so would have been out of the school dances, but it still carried over the next few years to weddings and whatnot. The number 6 song, the week of April 23rd, 1998, Billboard Top 10. Romeo and Juliet by Silky Fine featuring Chill. Again, I got nothing. I got nothing. Number 7 was Body Bumpin' Yippee Yi Yo by Public Announcement. I'd like to make a public announcement. Nobody knows your song. How are you in the top 10? The next one, number 8, I did know. Truly Madly Deeply by Savage Garden. Was not a fan, but I do know the song itself. Number 9, hey, we got to give props to this because this person is part owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers. Nice and Slow by Usher.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah. And the last one I definitely know because it was more of an alternative. Shows up on the on Lithium on Sirius XM. Sex and Candy by Marcy Playground.
Yep.
So yeah, that just takes us back let's do the time warp again. I know that's a whole different ball game, but that kind of thing. Anyway, so coming up for the Cavs, so as we touched on, they got hosed a little bit down in Atlanta. Let's just call it what it is. It was some 7-9 bull bleep, as Jeff Fisher would say. And so I'm a little bit disappointed, a little salty about that. But it is what it is. I know some people are kind of ticked off. I saw Michael Regai. Maybe he was tweeting it or talking on his show. He was a little disappointed with the fourth quarter offense in that it seemed like it was Mitchell and Garland show with them kind of alternating who was taking the shots, and they didn't get it down to Mobley enough. What was your impression? Again, I didn't catch it, on TV, and I was only listening. What were your impressions?
Yeah. I mean, it did, I guess, kind of feel that way, but at the same time, they did come back, so it was a successful strategy. And that's one of the things is you have a number of people who are capable on offense, and how you share the ball down the stretch is going to be probably different from game to game. It's going to probably depend on who you're playing. But it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because you're kind of at this point where Mobley is becoming a star. And he has been great in fourth quarters of games. I mean, he's hit some very clutch shots and made obviously plenty of clutch defensive plays. And he will take that role, I think, at some point. I don't know that he's ready just yet. But it was interesting because we got a little bit, they started doubling, Mitchell off of screens and stuff like that. So that's like a little bit of what I think you'll see in the playoffs. So you got a little bit of that experience under your belt to kind of see how they handle that, which I think they kind of switched it up. And I feel, and it's the eye test, so I could be wrong, but I feel like they started running more action between Garland and Mitchell, so that if you're, doubling off of one, leaving a guy you don't want to leave, which was an interesting take on it. So, I don't really have any complaints about their offense, because they did get, they did come back and they, scored. I'm sure they outscored them in the fourth quarter based off of, I think, where we were sitting out of the third. But, it'll be a tough thing for them to figure out, because you've got people you have to keep happy. There's not a ton of ego in the locker room, I think. At least it doesn't appear so from the outside. So hopefully that's manageable, and I'm sure they'll, have a different person every game, like Okoro, for instance, hitting the three the game before.
Yes, absolutely. Like I was saying before we got going here, I didn't know I would actually miss Okoro on the floor. I looked at the box score midway through, a little bit into the game, or maybe it was the night, and I'm like, he's played 9 minutes, he's had 0 shots. What is going on? And then I, found out what had happened or what was happening with him. But I certainly am glad to see Karis LeVert doing the types of things he's been doing. In the early going, they had, I think they missed like 5 free throws in the first quarter, and obviously that kind of comes back to bite you. You got to be better at that. You really do. This is going to be a very, it appears, I think it's pretty likely that the Cavs are going to be hosting the Knicks in the first round. And I think it's going to be a really good test for this team, because Tom Thibodeau is a seasoned veteran coach. He's been through this. He knows what he is doing. And, JB Bickerstaff and those guys are going to have their work cut out for him. It'll be interesting to see what the extent of this Julius Randle injury is that happened in the game yesterday. Missed a whole half, but they still beat the Heat. And, they've cooled down a little bit from where they were a few weeks ago. Again, it's all going to be interesting. We will see how it plays out. The Cavs and the Knicks play tomorrow. And based upon what I'm looking at in the standings, if we win tomorrow, we lock up the 4th seed. I think the most they can win is 48 games. We are at 48. So technically, it wouldn't matter whether if we win tomorrow or not. But I think all it takes is one more loss by New York, one more win by Cleveland to lock up no worse than the 4 seed. And, why you try and pay attention to other teams. I know tonight is a big showdown between Boston and Milwaukee. I heard them talking about it this morning with Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max. Sounds like there's some unrest in Boston. Have you been watching this from afar, seeing any of the discussion talking about with Jaylen Brown, the possibility of them breaking up Brown and Tatum? And that's kind of a head scratcher to me. I don't quite get it. Um, but that certainly could cause some problems. If there's some unrest, if there's any uneasiness in the locker room, will that spill out on the floor? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, generally those things do find their way to the floor. It's hard to separate them. I mean, they are professionals, so in theory they can do it. It is interesting though. I mean, I feel like across the league now, I mean, even just like the Kyrie Luca situation, like these people are so absurdly talented. You just assume that they'll play really well together, and I think you come to a point, especially when you start kind of younger with the same people, like Tatum and Brown starting kind of, in the same realm, both young, both blossoming. And now it's the whose team is it kind of deal. And like that stuff comes up and, every guy wants it to be his team. That's part of, the reason I think KD left the Warriors is like, oh, people still think it's Steph's team, even though I'm the one that's, really, coming up big in the fourth quarter. So like, okay, I'll go form my own team. And then it's like, okay, well, we're not really winning over here. Let me go, back over to Phoenix. It can be my team there. And, that's kind of what they search for. So I'm assuming it's probably related to that. I've only seen a few things on it. I haven't really
Yeah.
done any deep dives, but people, it's egos. That's what we were talking about. Like right now we don't have that. Will we? Probably at some point, people are going to start getting upset. And that's the nature of how it goes. And it's a little bit on the coach to manage that.
Yeah, definitely. Trying to keep all the egos in check has got to be a full-time job for these professional sports teams. And one thing I'll say, I don't know about you, but I've been impressed with Donovan Mitchell all season. He comes, first of all, he's not like dressed absurdly. He's not
Yeah.
super loud. He lets his game do his talking for him. And I see him, in press conferences, and like I said, I've been impressed with him so far. I know that maybe there's been some times people might be a little bit uneasy or have a little bit of, agita about what's going on at the end of close games. But didn't we all have questions about LeBron and his ability to make the right play and make the shot that, when it counted? That guy's gone on to be pretty darn good. So
People
I'll just
still
kind of,
question him, which is the wild part.
it is. I mean, you can sit there and I try and be a middle of the road type of person and look at things from both sides of the coin to see what there is. And I get it. Yeah, people question LeBron early in his career. Why did you pass up that shot? Well, we passed it up to give it to the guy who should be able to make it wide open.
Mhm.
That's the better shot. And if the guy makes it, it's a brilliant move. If the guy misses it, what's wrong with LeBron? Why didn't he take the shot? Why didn't he do it himself?
Yeah.
And the guy, sometimes you just can't win. You can't win in this world. People are going to find some reason to be critical of you.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so yeah, we will see what happens. So Cavs game back in action tomorrow night. Then Sunday they'll be hosting the Pacers. As we were just talking about, I am going to be taking the kids to the game, going up to Ohio. I'm going to be leaving the warmer weather to go up to the colder weather. It's only going to be like 47 in Cleveland on
Oh,
Sunday.
gee.
Not exactly happy about that, but it's not supposed to snow. It's just supposed to be cold on Sunday. But we're going to go to the game. Not sure who we're going to see out on the floor. We might be getting our full share of Dylan Windler and Sam Merrill. Maybe
Yep.
maybe Isaiah Mobley will get some playing time. No,
Yeah.
um, it's a real fine balance that JB is going to have to strike between resting your guys, not getting them injured, and closing out the season right and keeping up the momentum and the flow. The good thing is that after the season, they will have 4 days rest or so, while other teams are doing the play-in spots.
Yep.
That'll be a good break for them. So we are talking about attitudes, talking about locker rooms. Well, look who appeared in the news this week out of the NFL owners' meetings. One OBJ. Cameras captured him as he was caught embracing Kevin Stefanski. So the first thing is, I'm going to say that's a whole lot of nothing. And I want your thoughts on it as well. First of all, I'd say it's a whole lot of nothing from the perspective of, is OBJ coming back to Cleveland? But it sure does look like there was a much better relationship between Stefanski and OBJ than maybe per se Stefanski and a certain number 6 who was playing quarterback, who basically was ready to toss him right aside, toss him out the door long before he was gone. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, I tend to agree. It's fun to wonder, about OBJ, and I think you could tell, when we had him before, obviously we had to, release him, that they already, I think at that point had made up their mind about Baker, and they really were trying to keep him around because they knew the next guy was going to be better. I don't know if they knew the next guy was going to be Deshaun, but they knew the next guy was going to be better, and I could see them hanging on with some of the stuff that was pulled longer than they should have, I think, for that reason, because every guy seems to every guy loves him. It looks like on Twitter, publicly, they all, tag him on Instagram, like, hey, come back to the team. Even the new guys are saying, come back to the team. But yeah, I think it's ultimately more, I think, a sign about, where they stood with OBJ versus Baker probably. And we will never probably get that look. I did see that Baker turned down the Ravens, though. Did you see that today?
Yes, I did see that. And I was going to you read my mind. I wanted to go there because don't you think that's a bit of an ego thing too? That might not have been the first reason, but that had to play a role because they didn't want him to necessarily come in. When they offered him, they weren't probably offering him to come in and start. They were really wanting to add him to the depth chart. And he's like, no, I'm better than that. I want a starting job.
Yeah, I would say probably, but also because him and Lamar are just polar opposite quarterbacks. Like, I don't know that was necessarily. It feels more like they know Lamar is out the door, and if it's true that they did offer Baker and he turned them down, because you're running a whole different offense if you've got Baker at quarterback, and you can't just slide him into the Lamar offense. I don't think that would work. He's not agile enough.
He isn't. But let me throw this out there to you. Their major problem has been their passing game, their receivers. Mm-hmm. Other than Mark Andrews, they have very little success in just your normal run-of-the-mill pass plays. Most of their success came with Lamar's ability to break contain, to avoid sacks, and improvise. Mm-hmm. And they did run the ball an awful lot. And with guys like J.K. Dobbins and, they had Gus Edwards, and I don't know what their current running back room is going to be like. But is it possible, though, that Harbaugh just would prefer to run that type of a vanilla offense?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like their run game works because Lamar is also a threat to run. And Baker can do it for like that half yard you need, but he's not on that level. So I think it takes away one of the threats that you have to worry about as a defense in their run game. And I don't think they could slot him in like that. But they do have a new offensive coordinator, right? Am I making that up? I believe Baltimore got a new OC.
Well, I know that they got rid. And I should be on top of this. Greg Roman left before last year, and they had Matt Canada. And I'm not sure if Matt Canada stuck around after last season or not. Something tells me you're right on this, and I did not do my due diligence here on that one. Bottom line is it's a real cluster fudge there in Baltimore. They have they've insulted Lamar.
Yeah.
Rightly or wrongly, they have come across as, we're not going to pay this money. And we don't think you're worth it. We don't think you're worth guaranteed money, the same type of money that Deshaun Watson got paid. And quite frankly, coming off having won an MVP, if I'm in his shoes, I'm saying to them, look, I've won you an MVP. You can't win squat without me on the field. And I don't have any problems in my personal life.
Yeah.
Yet this guy over there, they're willing to pay him, and from the owner's perspective, they're saying, look, dude, yeah, you won an MVP. You're phenomenal. We love you. But you've had injuries, and then you're off the field, and our team suffers from it. And I don't know what the finances are there, but for, Bisciotti might be saying, look, I can't just do what Haslam is doing, because we see what's happening this year. They restructured that contract. So you got to have it, to the extent that you're paying a large chunk up front, you have to have that money. And I don't know. I mean, theoretically, Bisciotti's got it, but I don't know. It's a bad look on both sides, I think. I'm more on the Baltimore side.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I think, like, back to Baker when he hurt his shoulder and he said, hey, I'm going to play through it. And it really came back to bite him. And then you've got Lamar who said, like, hey, I'm not 100%. I'm not going out there. And now it's coming back to bite him. So there's really like a no-win situation at this point, and I totally get his perspective. I mean, he did say, and, I think there's two things to it, but he did say that he feels, like he's being a good teammate by saying, I'm not 100%, some guy behind me in line, my dog's about to bark. Some guy behind me in line, second guy up is the one that's going to give us the best shot to win. I'm going to step back, and I'm being a good teammate for that, not being selfish. But I mean, I think it comes down to, I don't have any money beyond this year that I know of. I'm not putting my body on the line. And that also came back to bite him. So it is interesting because you got two sides, and they both kind of screwed themselves with the decisions that they made.
Yes, they have. And we talked about it already. The fact that all these teams have come out, nope, we don't want him. Nope, we're not interested. First of all, Atlanta, you're out of your mind. You're not interested. You're going to ride with Desmond Ridder. You're not.
Yeah.
Indianapolis.
And he'd be a great backup to Lamar. That's the thing. Like, he could learn behind Lamar. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Indianapolis.
Yeah.
You don't need him. You're out of your mind. The Jets. Wouldn't you rather take him than the drama around Aaron Rodgers? I mean, I can't believe this nonsense.
Yeah.
It's complete crap to me. I don't get it. Like, I don't love Lamar, obviously, but I feel like he's getting hosed. He's getting hosed by these teams, these owners. Something ain't right. Something is fishy about the whole thing. I think that he's got every right in his mind to say, look, I deserve just as much as the top paid guy. And I think he's got a pretty good argument. Deshaun he got injured his first season. I mean, it's a tough thing to put your body on the line every week and know that you can get destroyed and then you're done. Your career's over. I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see if this plays out. I was reading some articles talking about, is it possible that Lamar never doesn't play for Baltimore this season? Well, then what happens? I mean, do they eventually say, all right, fine, we're gonna trade you? I don't know what the solution is. And one thing, and something that was interesting that I heard this morning was they were talking about, again, listening to ESPN radio, they were talking about Kirk Cousins getting guaranteed money. It's like, I had kind of forgotten about that. I mean, Deshaun Watson's not the only guy that got guaranteed money. Kirk freaking Cousins got guaranteed money. You mean to tell me that Kirk Cousins deserves guaranteed money and Lamar Jackson doesn't deserve guaranteed money? Hell no.
Yeah.
Hell no. That is terrible. I'm not down with that. So, yeah, Captain Kirk, is this how you like it, man? Can, yeah, whatever. That guy is mediocre at best, certainly at best. So, hey, whatever it is, I'm just hoping that this bad blood continues and that Lamar Jackson is not playing for the Ravens come September. And that will make life a little bit easier for the Browns because they've certainly got enough to deal with in Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. And just the psychological, I think, of taking of Pittsburgh is always going to be problematic. Even though they have Kenny Pickett and we in Cleveland pick on him, don't think he's all that in a bag of chips. Certainly Mike Tomlin is a good coach and gets the most out of his guys there. A couple
Yeah.
other things from the owners' meetings. A quote, Jimmy Haslam sat down with some media and there was no recording of it. But, no video, no specific recording. But one of his quotes, I guess, was he says his biggest mistake, and I don't know if you'll tell me if you saw this or not. The biggest mistake we've made with Paul, and this was in relation to Paul DePodesta, the biggest mistake they made with Paul is not fully embracing his ideas early on. That's interesting. So it seems like there is no chance in hell, as one Vince McMahon would say, that Depot is going anywhere. What has he got on him? Does he have some dirt on these guys?
They could. It wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah. But yeah, so that really speaks to the decision to go with Freddie Kitchens as opposed to going to Kevin Stefanski the first time around after they fired Hugh Jackson, they went with Freddie Kitchens. I'm sure there were a number of other decisions that probably John Dorsey didn't go along with, didn't endorse, that was coming out of the analytics mindset of Paul DePodesta. So this whole idea of having everybody on the same page and looking at things the same way and being in alignment is certainly where they're going. So what do you think about, I looked and I saw Caesar Sportsbook put out projected win totals for all the NFL teams. They got the Browns at 8.5, so right down the middle. I mean, you can't win 8.5 games. Maybe you go 8-1, but you got 17 games. What do you think? Over or under on 8.5? Let's assume healthy. Let's assume
it better
healthy.
be over. If it's not over, we've got big problems. It has to be over. I mean, the whole thing is getting shredded if it's not over at this point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there'll be players left, but there will not be the whole staff will be gone.
I mean, there could be a lot of players gone too at this rate. I mean, because at this point there are no. Yeah, we're gonna be tied to him for a while, but.
Right, but yeah, I hear you. I hear you. On the draft front, guys that the Browns are meeting with, they went down to Florida. They met with a defensive tackle, Gervon Dexter. They also signed another guard, a little more depth, Wes Martin. He had been playing for the Commandos. Someone that has come up recently, a wide receiver, very fast, may be available a little bit later in the draft when we've got some picks. Tank Dell from the University of Houston. So, I mean, it looks like they're obviously doing their due diligence and looking for the best players that are available. I've seen a lot of chatter. We talked about it before. People talking about Kenny McIntosh, Deuce Vaughn from Kansas State. There's been another name that just popped into my head. It flew into my funnel. If you're a fan of Thomas the Tank Engine, it flew right into my funnel. The safety from Iowa, I believe it's Campbell. Is that name ringing for you?
I don't think so. Not off the top of my head.
Yeah, there's a safety at Iowa. I think it's Jack Campbell. And, I mean, he apparently was pretty darn good. And, any way that we can further reinforce the defensive backfield is certainly a help. We've done a good job in the offseason. I think all the moves they've made have been really good. Obviously, after we talked, last week. Then they go, in and they bring in Marquise Goodwin. I think that was a great move to add the additional speed that we
Yep.
need. So it'll be interesting. What do you think about? There were also some changes to the league rules. The big one, the one that has so much consequence. You can now wear the number 0 for play any player other than offensive line or defensive line. I don't know about you, but that's huge to be able to wear 0.
Yeah, I think Greg Newsome had a mock-up done for him, and I think he posted it. So it'll be interesting to see because I assume you still, and maybe I'm confusing leagues. It might be the NBA where this happens, but if you change numbers, you have to buy out right? That's the same?
I believe
So
you are correct, Madison, that yes, there is a cost associated at a certain point of changing your jersey number, but I'm not sure at what point that kicks in. Um, Kickers can also now wear numbers from 0 to 49 and numbers 90 to 99. Oh boy, I mean, this is exciting stuff. What are they doing? I mean, we can't talk about having a sky judge. We can't talk about like interjecting some technology to make these calls easier, and we can figure out if someone got a first down or not. You're talking about numbers, really.
you got to have some softball decisions in there to balance out the difficult, complicated ones where you got to argue over it. No one's going to argue over the numbers.
Right.
Make
I
it
hear you.
easy.
Maybe. Then they've also made one change, and this one has some implications to it. Instead of doing a series of roster cut downs from having over 90 bodies in camp down to the 53, it's going to be one cut down. So presumably that's going to impact the preseason, and kind of in a good way. I would say it's more positive than not, in that you have guys who are given further opportunity to show their skills, give that one extra chance to shine. And if they don't get a job with the team they're in training camp with, then maybe they can, catch on somewhere else. I mean, do you feel like that's a significant thing in the negative way?
In the negative way, I don't know. I mean, and maybe in the negative way that you're probably not going to get to see starters play very much at all now, especially
Right.
with more people. I mean, it does make the last game. I think it's just the last game really that you would have a lot more people available. I mean, they sit usually in that game anyways, but it does help in that regard. But bad if you're a fan and you want to see some people play. Get a few snaps, and it'll be interesting because we've talked about Deshaun being rusty, and does he need to play more in the preseason to get those game reps? Because it's obviously not the same when you're running around in shorts on a football field in the summer. So we'll see how it goes, but I would assume that it impacts what the starters play in preseason more than anything.
Right. And then they also are talking about this is another big thing that came out of the league meetings, is the rule that would allow teams to play a maximum of 2 short week games. They were initially talking about the possibility of being able to flex out Thursday night games so that they'd have a better matchup on Amazon. It's like, boy, how much did Bezos pay them for that one? I'm
Yeah.
sure there's some money involved.
There has to be some money involved. I did see that there's no medical reason that we can't make that call. Okay, sure.
Yeah, ask the players about that. Someone's head needs to roll over at the Players Association about that, because it really does. As much as the NFL talks about player safety, that's a joke. They gotta
Yeah.
laugh every time they hear these people at the NFL talk. Oh, player safety. No, it's not. Don't lie. Don't lie about that. That's a bunch of garbage. Um, so we'll wait and see what happens here. We are quickly approaching April, and the draft at the end of April. Although Browns don't pick until 74, in the third round, you never know what you're going to get. And I'm going to be I think it's going to be very telling to see what happens at the top of the draft board with these quarterbacks. I know that
Mhm.
Anthony Richardson had his pro day and he's throwing and he's hitting the roof of the building. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but
Yeah.
I'm not sold on him yet. And if I were at the top of the draft, if I'm the Panthers, I wouldn't be sold on him. I, as we discussed last week, I think I'd lean more towards CJ Stroud
Yeah.
over Bryce Young, but I think those are your two choices. I could be wrong. I mean, could Will Levis be another Josh Allen? I don't know. I haven't seen enough of him, enough of his tape to know what his ceiling is.
Yeah, it's a tough decision down in Carolina, but you pulled the trigger, so they have to have somebody specific in mind. I mean, I think if it's Richardson, they probably could have gotten him at 9, I think is where they were.
Right.
And that's I think when we talked about it, I was like, it depends on who they pick. Like if they pick him, then that's probably a dumb move to give up assets to move up to get a guy you probably could have gotten. But I mean, no guarantees. There's a number of teams that need a quarterback as long as their name's not Lamar Jackson.
Right, exactly. There you go. You hit the nail right on the head. And one last thing that came out of the owners' meetings and discussions with the Haslams, they talked about the probability or possibility of either renovating First Energy or building a dome over the current structure or building a brand new stadium with a roof, retractable or otherwise. And, I'm curious because if I understand correctly, I think Carolina are they not running into some similar situations with discussions about a new stadium to replace? Is it still Bank of America Stadium or whatever it
Yeah.
is?
I'm pretty sure it's still Bank of America Stadium, but now you're making me doubt myself. But yeah, they have quite a few issues because they have the soccer team too, and they put turf down for that, and the NFL players hate it because they used to have grass. But if you're going to run that many events at the same time, you're going to need something a little more durable. But yeah, they're talking about where to build, and they also have, I think, their practice facility or training camp facility, whatever we want to call it, I guess, that they were trying to get built that fell through, and I think there was a lawsuit. There was a bunch of stuff happening with that.
Yeah, that it gets tough, and we're not necessarily the taxpayers who would feel the brunt of it if the city of Cleveland or directly in Charlotte, if they're the ones who are footing the bill and adding on tax to this or that or your property tax, that's not on us. So it's easy to spend other people's money. But I've seen some malarkey comments from people who are not willing to look at it from both sides of the equation um, about the possible benefits it can have to the whole area. It's not just about going to watch the team play.
Yeah.
It's about the buildup in the surrounding area, the businesses, the revenue that's going to be generated from it over time. You would think if they would take a lesson from what Cleveland did with the Gateway Project, building what's now Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse and Progressive Field.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it certainly has built up businesses there. So speaking of Progressive Field, the old Gardos back in action tonight. Opener against Seattle out on the West Coast, taking on the Mariners. 1-6 against them last season. Yeah, that's not good. That's not a good thing. But we've got Shane Biebs on the mound. Got Shane Bieber. They're trotting out Luis Castillo. Castillo, his line against overall last season, he was 8-6, 2.99 ERA, 167 strikeouts, and a 1.08 WHIP. Against the Guardians last year, this guy had a .75 ERA. He went 1-0. He started 2 games against them, pitching 12 innings, 9 hits, 1 run. That 1 run was earned. It was a solo home run. Walked 2, struck out 14. We did not fare well against this guy.
Yeah.
So I'm not overly optimistic about tonight. But you never know. We got it's I mean this lineup is definitely different. If nothing else, even the players that were in the lineup last year in the early part of the season are much more seasoned than they were. Looking at Quan, he obviously had a
Mhm.
super hot start, but I mean, just having that experience and we've talked about the shift and the impact, or the lack thereof, impacting certain players that they normally shift, like Jose. We'll see
Yeah.
what happens there. Yeah, you put Josh Bell into the lineup, you inject his power, hope that he has a
Mhm.
big year. Um, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens there and how much the pitch clock affects thing. Um, First of all, I don't know if you heard it today. They were talking to Zach Plesac about it, and so I think you come at it from a couple. And I read an article about it where it's talking about the impact on batters as well as the pitchers. And they were showing this in this article a number of batters and their routine. Could you imagine these guys that have like this whole routine and then come to find out it's like, oh crap, I can't do that anymore. And they totally have to change their mentality. How much do you think that impacts the hitters as well as the pitchers? And who does it impact more?
Yeah, I mean it's a good question. I mean, I am tempted to say it impacts the hitters, but I think statistically they've scored more runs, right, with the pitch clock so far. I believe I may be wrong. But in my head, it makes sense that, hitting, I feel like is such a rhythm thing. You've got to get on the right beat to hit the ball at the right time. It's going so fast and which pitch. And so I feel like if you're, used to a certain like kind of rhythm to get ready and, a lot of them bounce back and forth and do that whole thing. If you can't do your full little run up to, stepping into the box officially, that would impact you. But I mean, they are professionals. So at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to be too much of a weight on them. But in my head, it makes sense that it would impact them more. But I don't know if that's what the stats have shown.
Yeah, it's really going to be something to watch, especially I'd say maybe about the first month of the season, um, to see what happens and the terminology that they were talking to Plesac about and that I was listening to is what happens in those quote unquote the high leverage situations in the seventh, eighth, and ninth innings, um, where you might have had more of a chess match going on. I mean, they've already gone to the point you've got the technology where the catcher is using the wristband and punching in whatever and transmitting to the pitcher, and they're not even using finger signals anymore. Um, there's not a lot of room for a pitcher or time for a pitcher to shake off a catcher. You got to be
Yeah,
pretty sure what you're going to call.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, yeah, that's fair. I also wonder, and I don't know if it would be better or worse for them, but with less rest in between pitches, if it'll impact how far into the game they can go, or if it'll be better because they're just, sometimes if you get in the zone and you're just like five away pitches and you're unhittable, then maybe that helps you stay in the game longer. But I do wonder about that because obviously keeping an arm healthy is the number one issue with pitchers, right? And I'm sure there's going to be some level of impact, I would think, just by nature of not resting as much in between pitches.
Right. Well, we shall see. We shall see. We've got Bieber on the mound tonight. 10-10 start. Hopefully we get the can get a W and start the season out right, but no freakouts early on, at least not. I mean, last year it didn't start out so great. I was ready to write him off a month into the season or less. So
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit I was wrong. I was a little bit harsh. And Tito got him into shape. Tito really got him into shape, but we lost McKenzie due to injury, at least for
Yeah.
2 weeks. They shut him down, and possibly up to a total of 8 weeks we could be without this guy. That's
Yeah.
big because the guy they've got taking a spot in the rotation tomorrow is Hunter Gaddis. Would you like to know what his stats were last year for the Guardians?
Sure.
Yeah, not impressive. Okay. An 0-2 record in 2 starts. He only lasted. Now, these were probably bullpen games where they weren't asking him to go very deep. Okay. is what I would guess. 7.1 innings, 7 1/3 innings pitched. He allowed 15 hits,
Ooh.
15 runs, all of them earned, gave up 7 home runs, issued 3 bases on balls, and only struck out 5. That's
Yeah,
not
it's not
good.
great. It's not
No,
great.
that is not good. So I don't have much confidence going into tomorrow. Hopefully, Dr. Sticks will be back on the mound here shortly. Then we go game 3. Savale's on the mound, followed by Quantrill. We know Quantrill is pretty dang good at home. Hopefully, that'll carry over to the road. And the other big news going on for the Guardians, and I think it's a sign of the strategy that they are imploring with locking up their youngsters. You know, last year, obviously, we locked up Jose to the big contract. Andres Jimenez, 7 years, $106.5 million, and an 8th-year club option. That's big. And they just locked up Trevor Stephan for 4 years, a key to the bullpen. How much confidence does that give you about the direction of the organization to try to build up this core for an extended run?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. I think you're probably getting them cheaper than you would if you wait in the long run, which is always good in the eyes of Cleveland, of course, when it comes to the Guardians. We're never one to spend too much money, so the cheaper we could get them, the better. But I also think it says a lot about the team and the staff because players are wanting to stay and commit for that long. I mean, I'm sure in their head they probably know. I mean, obviously we know, could get more money elsewhere, but they want to stay, it seems like, and they're willing to, sign the contract a little earlier, maybe a little bit of a hometown discount. So I think it's a good thing. Hopefully, it's not signing guys too early and then they fall off. Obviously that's always a kind of thing in the back of your mind, especially I think we're prone to that type of thing. So, hopefully it's a good thing in the long run. And it's good to have them, under contract for so long.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially locking up that bullpen has been important. If you take a look back, and again, I don't want to take credit for this, but I sat there and listened and nodded my head in the affirmative. When the Indians in recent years, the Guardians, when they've had success, they have had a pretty darn good bullpen back end of the bullpen.
Yeah.
In the run to the World Series, you had Andrew Miller and Cody Allen. You had a bunch of middle relievers who did a great job. Years before that, many years before that, I mean, you had Mesa. You've had and just a series of other guys that have really carried the back end of the bullpen, and now with Clase and those setup guys, if Karinchak keeps his head in the game, he's going to be important. I wonder how Karinchak. I didn't look at his stats for the spring, but he had the most fidgety routine I have
Yeah.
ever seen by a guy, and it was the most. It drove me nuts. Absolutely drove
Yeah.
me nuts seeing that, and it'll be curious to see what happens because he does come in those high leverage situations.
Yeah.
So yeah, Guardian season back underway tonight. 10:10 first pitch, and you'll probably be asleep. I might be awake, but I don't have the MLB package, so yeah, I might listen, and then we'll see how that goes in the morning. I'll wait, but if it's as fast as they say it's going to be, maybe I'll stay interested for longer and be willing to stay up a little bit later if I think the game's going to be done an hour
True.
or a half hour to an hour sooner than for the usual. So, wanted to switch here. Now we've covered all of our bases to a little yay or oy vey as we open up the baseball season. Some new menu items at Progressive Field. And part of going to the ballpark is the ballpark experience. The food is always good. And it's amazing, how much stadiums have stepped it up. Back in the day, your choices were a hot dog. Maybe you might be able to get a hamburger, some chicken tenders, fries, and maybe there was a Pizza Hut Express. That popcorn and cotton candy, that sort of thing. Now you
Yep.
got it's fancy.
Yep.
It is fancy. So, some new options that are going to be that are going to be available at Progressive Field. Let's go over these. I want your yay or oy vey. The first one, I don't know how you can go wrong with it. Pepper Jack bites. So crusted pepper jack cheese served with ranch dressing. This is from Fatheads in the right field district. So shout out to Fatheads in the right field district. We are talking pepper jack bites. Yay or oy vey on the pepper jack bites?
I will be a yay for sure on that. I have no doubts that'll be delicious.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know how you can go wrong with fried cheese. And I'm a
Never.
big fan of the spice, big fan of the pepper jack. So we're going to go, yeah, I'm also going to go yay on the pepper jack bites. Next one, also in the right field district. This is available at Melt Bar and Grill. The Melt Buffalo Chicken Mac and Cheese Bowl. Sounds messy, but it's a signature creamy macaroni and cheese topped with buffalo chicken. Are we going to go yay or oy vey on the Melt Buffalo Chicken Mac and Cheese Bowl?
I will say my head says yay, my heartburn says oy vey.
That is a fair answer. That because you know what? As we get older, we have to make these tough decisions. We don't have the iron, stomachs that we once did.
What's worth suffering for?
Yeah, I mean, from the perspective of does it sound delicious? Absolutely, yay. Would I be getting it? I'm not gonna get it because of the mac and cheese, a little bit too carbolicious for me, but it does actually sound like it'll be something pretty tasty. All right, the next one on the menu. This one's going to be out in left field, the opposite corner there. This is available at Build-A-Burger. It's the pimento cheese and bacon burger, a 1/3 pound certified Angus all beef patty topped with pimento cheese, bacon, and shredded lettuce on a freshly baked brioche bun. Pimento cheese and bacon burger, yay or oy vey?
I am an oy vey. I am not a pimento cheese person, which I feel like strikes me from being a North Carolinian, but it's not my thing.
It does.
It does, but no thanks.
As I've learned from my wife, pimento cheese is a staple. Big fans down in North Carolina. I think it's what the Palmetto's brand is a good one.
I have no idea. I don't eat it.
Well, anyway, but yeah, I mean, I think. Again, this is one of the things I would not eat for for a number of reasons, but I do think that it should be a yay. It absolutely should be a yay. All right. Next one. This is going to be under the left field bleachers. Okay. So there's not, hey, you're out in the bleacher seats. You've spent almost, those are some of the least expensive seats out there. You can get hot honey chicken tenders from the Fat Rooster. This is signature tenders, crispy fries, and a hot honey glaze from the local establishment, Akron Honey, available at Fat Rooster. Hot honey chicken tenders, yay or oy vey?
I'm a yay for sure.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to go with an oy vey because it's like it's a chicken tender. No matter how you slice it, it's a chicken tender. And I'm a little concerned about it. I might be someone could probably twist my arm, but just based upon the description, I'm like, I don't know. All right, next one. Now this is crazy. Crab Rangoon nachos. This is available at the Loaded Nacho stands in right field. These are Tostitos chips topped with white cheddar cheese sauce, sweet chili sauce, shredded crab, sesame seeds, and green onion. Crab Rangoon nachos. Yay or oy vey?
I'm going to say oy vey, and no offense, but in part because seafood in the not coast little worries me, but especially so in a ballpark, I feel like. So I'm an oy vey.
All right. No, for me, I'm looking at it. I'm like, yeah, shredded crab. Really? I mean, is it? First of all, I want to know, is this going to be real crab or is this going to be fake imitation, the crab sticks? Yeah, quit screwing with nachos, okay? Nachos are nachos. Let's not screw around with the original. So I'm going to go oy vey as well. All right. The next item on the list, we got just 3 more. mac and cheese brisket. This one is available at Throw and Smoke Barbecue along the third baseline concourse. You've got creamy mac and cheese topped with Montgomeryan barbecue brisket, pickled and crunchy onions, and a drizzle of barbecue sauce. Yay or oy vey on the mac and cheese brisket.
I'm a yay on that. That sounds really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% yay on that. I mean, I would probably like not eat much of the mac and cheese, but mac and cheese and brisket goes so well together. I'm a big fan. All right, the next thing, and you and I talked about this because it was on this picture and people were commenting on it. I was like, oh, this looks great. It's called the Wild Thing. This is also available along the third baseline concourse. The Wild Thing is a field roast dog, and in parentheses it says vegan, with house-made vegetable chili, shredded cheddar, diced onion, and flaming hot Cheetos. Are we a yay or oy vey on the Wild Thing?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be an oy vey. I need a real hot dog.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going oy vey on that. There's no chance. It's like, give me if I'm gonna have a hot dog, I'm gonna have a hot dog.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, this just
already a
sounds
little
awful.
questionable.
The toppings on it, like give me some regular chili and throw me some Cheetos on there. All right, that might not be bad. But everything else sounds good except for the dog. Maybe if you can do a substitute on that, I don't know. And the last thing on the list, and this is just how strange things are at the ballpark these days, that you went from things that were all handheld to whole full course, meals here. You got to sit down. A noodle bowl. This is available at Down the Line Bowls on the third baseline concourse. This is ramen noodles, Asian sauce, red pepper, carrot, Napa cabbage, sesame seeds, and optional ginger chicken. Noodle bowl, are we yay or oy vey?
I feel like I would say maybe, but I feel like not in that setting. So I guess I got to go oy vey.
Yeah, I'm going to go oy vey as well because I don't want to be having to sit down and get utensils. It's like, it sounds hot. It sounds like a hot bowl of soup, middle of summer. I don't want a hot bowl of soup. No, I'll just go to the Vietnamese restaurant, get some pho, somewhere else and do that. So I'm going to pass on that. So that is all we have for this edition of Yay or Oy Vey. So Madison, we now take that moment, return to what has us going nuCLEar this week. And I just want to know, what's got you going nuCLEar this week, Madison?
Yeah, I think for me this week, and I've thought about this, and I think the thing that made me the most annoyed throughout the week, I was, working in the middle of something. Technically, I am showing green on Teams. I was not in Do Not Disturb. But, I was like focused and trying to get through this list of things to do. And I get a phone call out of the blue that takes like 25 minutes, bumps up against my next meeting. Like, didn't give me any warning. Not like, hey, you got a minute? None of that. Just, hey, I'm just going to call you straight away. And then you have to answer because like I can't decline the call. And then I lost my place and I went into a meeting. So it took me an hour to get back to it. And I'm just like, can you just like give me a ping and I'll let you know when I'm like really free? Because I know I'm free, but I'm not really free. I can't keep myself on Do Not Disturb all the time. People have questions for me and they ping me. They don't call me. So, maybe it's my generation of the like, just send me a quick message and I'll answer you faster than you trying to give me a phone call. But yeah, that was my frustration this week. Just, give me a little warning. Let me, tell you whether I'm doing something at the moment. I mean, for all you know, I'm walking the dog outside. So give me a heads up.
There you go. I mean, it's common courtesy. It really is. I don't know. People don't. It's common courtesy. It's common sense, and people lack that. People absolutely lack. So I feel you. I feel your pain there. So I had a difficult time with this, thinking about it this week. Normally I'm angry about a lot of things. I've got a lot of things to get off my chest. I'm just a generally angry person here. But this week, something that has me going nuCLEar is a recent attempt, an inquiry into a potential job. And it's one of those things where you're going to apply for a job and they've got a gatekeeper. They've got an outside source vetting the job and vetting the prospects, right? And they've come up with this list of you've got to do, all these bullet points of things you have to submit. So I go ahead, I tried to follow the guidelines, I sent in my stuff, and they're like, "Oh, you've only got A, you don't have B. You need to send in B." I simply responded. I said, "Look, I've got experience doing B. I just don't have the uh, the footage. I don't have the audio to give you because it was done so long ago that it does. And the places where I did it, it doesn't exist. They don't exist anymore. What am I supposed to do? Pull this out of my hat?" And they're like, "Well, sorry." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me?" I mean, you would pass up somebody and eliminate them because of this one thing. You wouldn't rather talk to them and figure out, no. We're just going to use that as an automatic disqualifier. And so that has me going nuclear. The fact that you've got these people that try to act as the gatekeepers in looking for qualified candidates, and it's in all sorts of industry, and they are missing out on good people because they've got certain questions they're looking for you to answer in certain ways. The algorithms are set up that if you don't say the right thing, you're instantly, not qualified. And it's crazy. People, and they, it's that whole thing with, well, we want you to have experience. It's like, okay, well, this is entry level, but you're supposed to have experience. Well, how am I supposed to have experience if you won't hire me?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy the way these things operate. But I will tell you that out of that going nuclear moment, back in the day, I did have the radio station where I was doing the broadcast, record stuff. I was able to I pull those out, and I had fortunately given them to my son. They were in his closet. We pulled them out. Found some doozies. I found some doozies. Going all the way back to doing a fan cast at Old Cleveland Municipal Stadium with my best friend for his birthday. We did a fan cast, and it was before my voice had even changed. So I'm like, wow. And I'm listening to that. I'm like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. Even though I was only 11 or something like that, I'm like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard. And I should probably destroy this tape, but I won't.
You should have sent it in, is what you should have done.
I should have. I mean, unfortunately, I had that would have been funny.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not going to get it anyways, you might as well have a good time.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this. I'm going to go back, and I am going to say that I was able to find some of the requisite material, albeit very old. And just to satisfy this joker, I did send it back in. But let me tell you this, and this also has me going nuclear. I sent it in, albeit in a separate email. The person's like, "I'm glad you found this. Please resubmit in one email," like all the stuff. I'm like, all the attachments are there. If you scroll down, you'd see the content of my email. You jackleg.
Yeah.
So yeah, good time. Good times there. And that is what has me going nuclear this week. Folks, we will be off next week, but we'll be back with you following the 1 week break. So 2 weeks from now, we will come back. We'll be talking Guardians, Cavs. As the playoffs come into shape, we should be ready for that and see what's happened with the Browns. Hopefully, Megan will be back with us as she is battling illness. We have missed her the past couple of weeks. As always, Madison, appreciate your efforts, and you do a great job. Folks, reminder, we are presented by Buzz Sports CLE. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow the show on Twitter at Going Nuclear CLE. Please tune into our YouTube channel, subscribe, send us your comments during the show. We'd love to hear from you. And that's going to do it here for Going Nuclear. Madison, thanks again, as always, and have a great evening. That's going to do it. for Going Nuclear full blown coverage of the land.